بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, praise be to Allah. Peace be upon the Prophet Muhammad, his family, his companions. By the will of Allah, we continue our training course related to the fundamentals of faith. And today we are going to move to another aspect about the belief in Allah. We have discussed several matters about the belief in Allah. The belief in the existence of Allah, the belief in Ar-Rububiyyah, the Lordship, and the belief in the Uluhiyyah, the oneness of Allah. And today is the last aspect related to the belief in Allah, which is the belief in the names and attributes of Allah. Al-Asma'u was-Sifat. This is the last aspect related to the belief in Allah, the names and attributes of Allah. The names and attributes of Allah are affirmed by the Holy Quran and the Sunnah. The names and attributes of Allah are part of our Islamic creed. Therefore, we Muslims must believe in the names and attributes of Allah. The names and attributes that Allah confirmed for himself in the Holy Quran and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the Sunnah. This is the first thing. We must believe in them. Another thing, we must believe only, we must confirm only those names and attributes mentioned in the Holy Quran and in the Sunnah. And we should not confirm the names, any name or attributes not mentioned in the Quran, in the Sunnah. Another thing, we have to bear in mind that human mind has nothing to do with the names and attributes of Allah. Why? Because our minds are limited. Our minds cannot explore the essence of Allah. Our minds have shortages. We should not deal with the essence of Allah except through the Holy Book and through the Sunnah. As a matter of fact, the names and attributes of Allah are part of the unseen. And the unseen is not known for us. We should believe in them as they are mentioned in the Quran, in the Sunnah, and that's it. When someone describes to you the provision that you will get in the paradise, it's part of the unseen. I'm just drawing an example. He describes that in paradise you have such fruits and that provision and that happiness, and it just only names. Just only names. But the description of those fruits are unknown, because the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, told us that in paradise فيها ما لا عين رأت ولا أذن سمعت ولا خطر على قلب بشر. In paradise, there are things that eye hasn't seen, and ear hasn't heard of, and mind hasn't imagined. So I brought this example to tell you that if we are talking about some fruits in the paradise that are part of the unseen, the example of the names and attributes of Allah must be the Most High. We should not deal with the names and attributes of Allah except through the Holy Quran and through the Sunnah. When we affirm the names and attributes of Allah, that does not mean we bring any imperfection to Allah, towards Allah. As a matter of fact, we glorify Allah when we affirm the names and attributes of Allah. We exalt Him, we magnify Him, we confirm to Him the beautiful names and the sublime attributes. And this is perfection. We consider this as a Muslims, the perfection towards Allah when we affirm the names and attributes of Allah. But we affirm them with certain conditions, as we are going to discuss now. We affirm the names and attributes of Allah without tahrif, without ta'til, without takyif, without tamthil. These are the conditions for affirming the names and attributes of Allah. Without, we affirm them without tahrif. I'm sorry. Yes. The tahrif means to distort. To distort the meaning of the names and attributes of Allah. What does distortion mean? Distortion means to deviate the name or the attribute to another meaning. For example, al-istiwa. Some said al-istiwa means istawla, captured or controlled. Okay? We should not do this. We should affirm the names and attributes of Allah without distorting any one of them. Affirm them as they are in the Holy Book and in the Sunnah. Okay? And another condition, to affirm the names and attributes of Allah without at-ta'til. Without at-ta'til. And at-ta'til is to negate the meaning. To negate the meaning of the names and attributes of Allah. In another word, to reject them. To deny them. Okay? Therefore, we should affirm the names and attributes of Allah without negating the meaning of them, without rejecting the meaning, without denying the meaning of the names and attributes of Allah. And also, we should affirm the names and attributes of Allah without at-takyif. Without at-takyif. And at-takyif means to assign a manner for the attributes of Allah. A manner to say, well, this attribute is like this and this and this. For example, someone would say, okay, al-istiwa, like someone who sits on a chair. No. We should not bring any takyif. We should not assign any manner for the attributes of Allah at all. That does not mean the attributes of Allah do not have takyif. Do not have kayf. Do not have how. It means that they do have how, but we don't know. We don't know. They have how, but we don't know. Allah, the Almighty, the only one who knows how. So we should affirm the attributes of Allah as they are, without takyif, without assigning any manner to any attribute. And also, we affirm the names and attributes of Allah without at-tamthil. And at-tamthil means to draw parallels to the names and attributes of Allah. Okay? To His creations. You bring, okay, similarities between the names and attributes of Allah and the names and attributes of His creations. No, we should not do that at all. Okay. Where do we find the affirmation of the names and attributes of Allah? We find that in many verses in the Holy Quran. As Allah said in the Holy Quran, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا وَذَرُوا الَّذِينَ يُلْحِدُونَ فِي أَسْمَائِهِ سَيُجْزَوْنَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى. The names are, or the names belong to Allah. The beautiful names belong to Allah. And then invoke Allah using these names. And leave those who deny and reject the names of Allah. Indeed, these people who denied and rejected the names of Allah will be recompensed, will be reckoned on the day of judgment. This is the affirmation, this is an evidence from the Quran about the affirmation of the names of Allah. And the names of Allah have attributes. Every name or generally, the names of Allah have attributes. Allah is the all-hearer, for example. This is one of the name, As-Sami'. And he has the attribute of what?
Hearing.
Of hearing.
Hearing, yes.
He has the attribute of hearing. Allah is the all-seer. One of his names. Huh? One of his name,
The seer.
the seer, the all-seer. And the attribute is
Seeing.
seeing. Okay? And so on. So, Allah affirmed his names and attributes in the Holy Quran. And then he said in the Holy Quran, ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. None is like unto him. And he is the holy,
The all here.
the all
Hearer.
hearer and the all seer. Okay? So he affirmed the names and attributes for himself, and at the same time he said none is like unto him. Okay? So Allah has names and attributes, and there are attributes related to his essence, and there are attributes related to his acts. For example, the essence, some attributes related to his essence, like knowledge, like life, like hand, like eye, like leg, like face. These are the attributes related to his essence. But there are attributes that are related to his acts.
Action.
To his acts. Okay. Ar-Rahmah. Mercy. He brings mercy upon us. Okay. And like this. Okay. There are many sects who went astray in this subject, in the names and attributes of Allah. We put them into two groups. We put them into two groups. The first group, or the first sect, is Al-Mu'attilah. Al-Mu'attilah. Al-Mu'attilah are different groups who negated the names and attributes of Allah. Who negated the names and attributes of Allah. In another word, they rejected them. They denied them. Of course, different groups. Some of them, okay, negated they negated the attributes and affirmed the names. And so another group negated names and affirmed some of the attributes. And another group negated all attributes.
Yes. And
Okay?
names.
And all names. All of them are astray sects or astray groups. Okay? Okay, why? Why did they negate the names and attributes of Allah? Because they said, if we affirm the names and attributes of Allah, we would bring imperfection to Allah. Because we have to assign manners, we have to bring similarities between Allah and His creatures. This is their claim. They claim that if we affirm the names and attributes of Allah, we have to bring similarities between Allah and His creatures. And this should not fit the Almighty Allah. Of course, their claim is false. Why? Because Allah affirmed for Himself the names and attributes. Allah affirmed for Himself the names and attributes through His book and through the Sunnah. And at the same time, He told us that there is none like unto Him. Okay. If we follow this sect, then we would claim that there are contradictions in the verses of the Quran, in the statements of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Because some verses of the Quran affirmed the names and attributes of Allah, and some verses stated that there is nothing like unto Allah. Therefore, we should affirm the names and attributes of Allah as they are in the Quran and in the Sunnah. So, this is the first thing, the first answer for the Al-Mu'attila. That Allah affirmed the names and attributes for Himself, and at the same time, He stated that none is like unto Him. Okay. Second thing, another argument with these people, Al-Mu'attila, who negated the names and attributes of Allah. The agreement between the names of Allah, the agreement between the names and attributes of Allah and the names and attributes of His creatures does not mean to bring similarity or similarities between His names and attributes and His creatures' names and attributes. So, as I said, when we find agreement between the names and attributes of Allah and the names and attributes of His creatures, that does not mean there are similarities between them at all. Why? Because Allah addressed His names, addressed the basic meanings of His attributes, of His names and attributes. But the real meanings of the names and attributes of Allah for us are unknown. Okay? The real meanings of the names and attributes of Allah for us are unknown because they are part of the unseen. So we affirm the basic meanings of the names and attributes of Allah. This is the first sect, the first astray sect. The second astray sect is Al-Mushabbiha. Al-Mushabbiha. Al-Mushabbiha, those groups who affirm the names and attributes of Allah, but They make what? They made similarities between the names and attributes of Allah and the names and attributes of His creations. Why? Because they said Allah addressed us through our understanding. Therefore, He addressed His names and attributes in order to understand them. So we have to bring similarities between His names and attributes and between the names and attributes of His creatures in order to understand them. Otherwise, we would not understand them. They are also false. They are wrong. Why they are wrong? Because Allah, the Almighty, addressed His names and attributes in the Holy Quran and in the Sunnah without telling us that my names and attributes are like those creations and such and such. As a matter of fact, He said, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. None is like unto Him, and He is the all-hearer, the all-seer. And this is in our book, the Holy Book, and in the Sunnah, is well stated that none is like unto Him. And there is a whole chapter in the Holy Quran about this matter. Surah Al-Ikhlas. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ الله الصَّمَدُ لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. Allah is the one, and He is the eternal refuge. He begat not, nor was He begotten, and none is like unto Him. Clear. So we should not bring any similarities between His names and attributes and between the names and attributes of His creation. So this sect is absolutely wrong when they stated that we should bring similarities or draw similarities between the names and attributes of Allah and the names and attributes of His creations. Okay. And another thing, it's not logic. It's not logic at all to say that the hand of Allah is like the hand of a human being. Glory be to Allah. Glory be to Allah. I mean, I can explain to you through a basic example. We know that a camel has a leg and a chair has a leg. Okay? And other things have legs. Okay. Does the leg, or is the leg of the camel like the leg of a chair or a table? Absolutely not. Okay. When you ride a horse, is it like when you ride a car? Absolutely not. So, I mean, it's not logic. It's not logic to bring any similarity between the attributes of Allah and the attributes of human being. Therefore, we are the people of majority, the people of Sunnah and majority. And the people of Sunnah and majority are the As-Salaf, As-Salih, and those who followed them until the day of judgment. are in the middle of these two sects. Are in the middle of these two sects. They are not mu'attilah, nor mushabbihah. They affirm the names and attributes of Allah without tahrif, without takyif, without ta'til, without takyif, without tashbih. They affirm them as they are. Allah has eye, He has eye. That's it. How, we don't know. Okay? Allah has face, He has face. But we don't know. How? Okay? Allah descend to the lower heaven, He descend to the lower I'm sorry, I should not say like this. I'm sorry. This is wrong when you say like this. Wrong. Okay? Allah descends to the lower heaven, He descends to the lower heaven. We don't know how. Allah mounts His throne in the manner that fits His majesty. Okay. That's it. We don't know how. Okay. Allah has a mercy. Okay, He has a mercy. Okay. Allah provides us with provision. Yes, He does this. Therefore, we should affirm the names and attributes of Allah as they are in the Holy Book and in the Sunnah without rejecting them, without negating them, without drawing parallels to them, without without drawing similarities to them, without any of these things, in order to be in the right path, in order to be from the right believers, in order to be safe in this life and in the hereafter. Okay, important thing to know about the belief in Allah. Anyone believes in one, okay, of the four matters that we described: the existence of Allah, the belief in the existence of Allah, the belief in the rububiyyah, the belief in the uluhiyyah, the belief in the names and attributes of Allah, without believing in the other matters, he is not believer. In order to be a believer, he should believe on all these matters: in the existence of Allah, in the rububiyyah, in the uluhiyyah, in the names and attributes of Allah. Okay? He should believe on all four matters: in the belief in the existence of Allah, in the rububiyyah, the lordship, in the uluhiyyah, the oneness of Allah, in the names of attributes, in the names and attributes of Allah. Otherwise, he is not a believer. Of course, when you deal with any non-Muslim, you say, okay, I believe in Allah. That's it. I believe in the existence of Allah. Okay. Do you believe that He is the creator? I mean, the rububiyyah? Do you believe that He is the only one? Do you believe in His names and attributes? Of course, he will stop. He say, no. So you are not a believer. Of course, when I said he is not a believer, he is not a believer in this part of the Islamic creed, the belief in Allah. But when we move to the other aspects of the Islamic creed, and anyone deny them, of course, he also not believer, because every Muslim should believe in all aspects of Islamic creed in order to be a true believer. Otherwise, He is not. Okay. I have a surprise for you, inshallah. It is, before this, I would like to end the matter, the belief in Allah, with the benefits of the belief in Allah. With the benefits of the belief in Allah. Believing in Allah, as we stated, yields great benefits. One of these benefits is the true manifestation of Tawheed. The true manifestation of Tawheed. Which means the attachment of love and fear and hope to Allah only. The attachment of love and hope and fear to Allah. So when we believe in Allah, we start to love Him. We start to fear Him. We start to hope good things from Him. This is the first benefit. The second benefit, the second benefit is to realize the perfect magnification and exaltation of Allah. To realize the perfect love, magnification and exaltation of Allah. Through what? Through knowing His beautiful names and sublime attributes. When we understand then His beautiful names and His sublime attributes, magnification, love, exaltations start to come to our hearts. Okay? And also, when we believe in Allah, we manifest the worship of Allah according to what He commands and according to what He forbade. When we believe in Allah, we worship Him as He commands and as He forbade. We do whatever He wants from us, and we become away from what He forbade. These great benefits are considered the way for us to the happiness in this life and to the success in the hereafter. The happiness in this life, when you believe in Allah, you start to live in harmony. Start to be relaxed, to calm down. And you believe that you will get a big reward in the hereafter in His paradise. Through the belief in Allah. Without the belief in Allah, people are nothing. People are suffering. People are, astray. They don't live good life. They don't live with happiness. They are lost in this life because they don't believe in Allah. This is why we find committing suicide in many societies where they don't believe in Allah. Even people who enjoy every good in this life, at the end they commit suicide. Why? Because they come to the end of this life. They enjoy life, and they are not satisfied at the end. Why? Because they don't believe in Allah and in the hereafter. Okay? Yes. Therefore, they commit suicide. They don't want to stay in this life. Why? Because this life has many shortages. It's not perfect. The life in this dunya, in this earth, is not perfect. It's only in the hereafter. It's only in paradise where you find the perfect life. Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah, who helped us to end the first matter related to the fundamentals of faith, namely the belief in Allah. Therefore, we should see